So I was thinking we were gonna be done with simplicity. I was gonna move on to solitude as in the spiritual disciplines. But based on the number of comments and questions that I got last week, I thought, okay, we have to spend at least one more week on this. So the question was, how do I know if I'm living a life of simplicity? Because it is different as a spiritual discipline than the other ones we've talked about. Because these are things that we go off and do, right? We take time to study, we take time to meditate, we go off, we take time to pray, gather in prayer. We decide we're gonna fast. Okay, those are things that we do, which is fine. But when you talk about the outward disciplines, beginning with simplicity, this isn't, you can't take Thursday from 2 to 3 and live a simple life and then go on. It's a broader, it's less specific than these, but it is a broader thing, and it has to do more with a mindset and an attitude, which we saw last week when we were looking at Matthew chapter 6. So, here's the question: how many of you are rich? Right? We're all rich. We are all rich. You put this on world economic standards today, everybody in this room is rich. If you put it in historic standards, we are filthy rich. There's just no way around it. Good. How many of you feel rich? Far fewer hands this time. Okay. So how many of you live extravagant lifestyles?
I think it's a relative term.
Define your terms.
How many of you live extravagant lifestyles?
Define extravagant.
Define extravagance.
2, 3?
Vacation every weekend and work 1-2 days a week, right? That's what extravagance is?
Well, better than that. Like I would always tell my boys that are growing up, and they go, we never take a vacation. And I say, why? Our life is a vacation. Why would we stop this? It's just a perpetual vacation.
Food, clothing, shelter?
Food, clothing, shelter. It's got to be the right food. So, this becomes a challenge, and if I summarize several people, and the question they ask me is, how can I tell if I'm living and engaging in a lifestyle of simplicity? Now, you can't answer this question in really specific terms. I can't say you're living a lifestyle of simplicity as long as your income is, $35,000 or less a year. Then, or your house value is only X dollars. You can't set those kinds of, and people have tried to, certainly in the history of Christianity, have tried to do those kinds of things, but it all becomes meaningless. I mean, just the way the economy works. So it isn't a matter of what's my total income. It's not a matter of how many things do I own. And you can't stand up and say, you can't justify a boat. You can't justify a snowmobile. You can't justify, Now, you can't answer this question in those terms. It's not definable in those terms. So, we have to begin and understand this principle. Okay, the world tells us to do what? Love stuff.
Use people.
And to use people. Use people to get them. That's what you do. And I don't know where the markers went. So everything's gonna be the same color.
There's a couple on the,
Yeah, and they're dead.
oh,
Okay, what does Jesus tell us to do?
Give everything away and love people.
Love people and use stuff to do it. We are to love people and use the stuff in order to love them. Now, when Jesus says we're supposed to love people, what word does he use for love?
agape.
Agape. And what is agape love?
Sacrificial love, a love that costs. A love that knows
Yes.
no bounds.
Yes. Ultimately, what's at the core of agape love?
What's best for someone regardless of cost to you.
It's doing what's best for the other person, regardless of what it costs you. And that's the word that Jesus uses when he talks about loving people. Okay, now I need some advice. So I've got a situation, you'll have to tell me how to handle this. Not long ago, Shelley and I bought a new pickup truck. Now, it's not brand new, it's new to me. It wasn't very old. It is, of all the trucks I've ever owned in my life, this is the nicest truck. It's a good truck. It's a nice truck. Got lots of bells and whistles. It's a good truck. It's nice, good. So, I got it. We'd had it about 3 days. Got a young guy working for me. And so we've got an area where when product is ready to go, we stage it out by the, if you've ever been to our place, between the shed and the house, there's a gravel pad there, we stage stuff. So when the semis or the trucks come in, it's easy and ready to load, very easy. My new truck is parked by the house. Great. So I tell a guy that's working for me, and he's not a rookie in this, he's worked for several years. I said, get the skid steer, we got a pile of a unit of timbers, I think it was timbers. I said, move them over, put them in the staging area so we're ready to load the truck. Great. And it's not like he's never done this. He's done this hundreds of times. It's not difficult. So he gets in and I see him go over and then I see him stopping and he's kind of by the truck and I see Shelley out there and I'm just working. And pretty soon he comes walking up to me and he is scared. And I go, what's going on? He said, I just ran into your truck. My new truck. It's what? Fortunately, if it was a Ford, I wouldn't have cared. So anyway, I go, well, let's go look at it. So he's not only run into it, it's not like a scratch, it's a scrape, he's bent the running board, it's smashed. And then, of course, he knows something, he stops, fortunately. So it's like, well, get in the truck and move it. So he gets in the truck, and if he'd have pulled it ahead, it would have been fine, but he decides to back up, which means he backs right into it. What do I do?
Laugh.
It's not new anymore.
It ain't new anymore. 3 days, nicest truck I've ever had. Spent more on that truck than I spent to buy my house. That's the relative price of vehicles now. Out of sheer carelessness, kid runs into it. Sheer carelessness. I'm looking at him, I go, did you see the truck? It's a big blue truck, did you notice it? Yeah. Did you notice what you were Yeah. What happened? Well, I thought I could do it. Well, you were wrong. Okay? So what should I do?
Call Warren and get back to work.
Call what?
Call Warren and get back to work.
Okay, I can call Warren. It's gonna get hauled to the body shop. That'll take 4 days. It's the only vehicle we own. Plus, I got either $500 or $1,000 deductible.
That's why you get back to work.
I wouldn't have had to stop working and deal with this if somebody's brain hadn't fallen out.
Sounds like you better pray about it.
It sounds like I better pray about it.
Yeah. Right?
So what should I do?
I agree with Mrs. Anderson.
Well, does he have, I'm assuming if he has a license, he has insurance and,
He's got a junk car with liability insurance.
of course he does. Maybe God's testing to see where your heart is.
Sunday school.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, that's it, this was all done for a
Yep.
test for me?
Yep.
Okay, so how do I pass the test?
By
Luke,
telling God you
Grace
forgive
and
them.
mercy.
and-
Wait, one over here. I can't believe you are not all jumping in with advice for me. Oh, well, do any of you feel any sympathy for him when he had to walk up and tell me, I just ran into your truck?
I work.
Hey, it wasn't
I'm mildly amused by it, so, I would have loved it better.
James, give us a serious answer now,
I think this pertains, Luke chapter 12, verse 21.
okay? Oh, good, you got a Bible verse for me. This is gonna calm me down.
This is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves, but is
Yep.
not rich towards God.
Okay? I still don't know what I'm supposed to do. Kids standing there, truck, what am I supposed to do?
Well, you have to forgive him.
I have to forgive him?
Yep.
Work out a payment plan.
Work out a payment plan?
Yeah.
Oh. All right, go ahead, Bob.
Forgive them first of all,
Yeah,
and then talk to them about it and see how you can both not have, let this happen again.
well, that's easy.
But don't fire them.
Bonehead, don't, watch what you're doing.
No, don't talk them down or nothing. Let 'em
Why
know
not?
that-
He was stupid.
Well, maybe that's his nature. Hey, don't let him drive the skid steer anymore.
That's his job.
Mago Dei.
All right, but the Lord says that we have to forgive them and then just go on.
So what should I do?
Look at the guy who.
What's the important thing? What's the
Forgive
most
the man.
important thing that has to be done in that moment?
Handle yourself.
You forgive them and stuff.
Loving people.
Loving people, not stuff. A truck's a truck.
And it's God's.
Remember that if I back into yours, okay? Heidi,
I think take a deep breath and act and not react would be the first thing I'd think of.
you think I would need to take a deep breath?
Yeah, and not like be able to think about it, cause my reaction would probably be bad, but if I moved past my reaction and thought about acting instead, I don't know what those actions should be, but I know my reaction wouldn't be what I needed.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I wonder if it could have been parked in a safer spot.
You could fire the person who hired him.
Well, that'd be me, so I have to fire myself.
No, Doug, it was don't trust it always.
The truck was parked where it's always parked. It's a 1-ton truck. If you can't see that, you shouldn't be doing anything around sharp saws. You're gonna lose a finger. So the question is, am I living a life of simplicity? It's a fairly good question. It's a very good question. Am I living a life of simplicity? How can I tell if I am? Well, the first question is, what's my response when something that I value is damaged?
What should it be or what is it?
Well, no, you have to ask yourself the question, what is it for you?
Anger.
What's the response when something that you value, that you have and value, is lost or damaged? What's your immediate response?
Depends on your level of maturity.
Well, I get that, it's gonna be for everybody. I'm not asking you in the generic third person. I'm asking you in the first person singular. If you wanna ask the question, am I living a life of simplicity? If you really wanna seriously evaluate your life and say, am I doing this? Or am I working towards this, and how can I tell? Well, you gotta be able to ask yourself some questions. One of which is, what's my immediate response when something that I value, a material object now, a material object that I own is lost or damaged by somebody else's carelessness? What's your response? That's the first question you have to ask yourself. If you want an answer to, am I living a life of simplicity? Andrew?
when something that, you know, I've never had a car damage like that or anything like that, but something is damaged, either, you know, by someone else or just by nature or whatnot, you know, I try to mimic the words of Job. The Lord giveth, the Lord taketh away, blessed be the name of the Lord.
Right. I think my words were more like, and this is why I don't own nice stuff.
That's the second thing you
It's
said.
kind of a corollary to that, you know?
Yeah, and
No
this is
point in
what's-
owning nice stuff, because if you do, this is what happens
Yeah.
to it. What? So the question is, what is my response? What's my attitude when something is lost or damaged? By, you know, you can say stolen.
Anger, depression?
The guy that did it probably has already lost 10 years of his life. You should feel sorry for him.
If he lost it 10 years in the time it took him to walk from the house to the sawmill. I mean, I gotta admit, when he walked out, I kind of felt sorry for him, 'cause he was scared.
Why was he scared and not just embarrassed?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Why shouldn't he have been scared?
Because he knew his employer. His
That's why he was scared.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's precisely why he should have been scared.
He was scared because he talked to Shelley first.
Yeah.
Shelley's the one that
And
told
he's
him, you
looking
better
for
go talk
relief.
to Greg. Otherwise, he wouldn't have. Shelley was the softie
Really?
for him.
Yeah.
What's my attitude when something that I value, that I have, is lost or damaged? You wanna know if you're living a life of simplicity? There's one test that will tell you. And the corollary then becomes what's your attitude towards the person who took it or damaged it.
But
Are you
most
more
people
concerned
don't
about
like
the
that.
object?
Wait.
Most people don't like that attitude. If something happens to something that you spent good money on, and you're not gonna replace it, you're not gonna go after the person who did that, I mean, it's like, we value our stuff so closely that we forget about the human consequences. And I think there should always be consequences for behavior, but also, I think, and I don't know when, as an employer, we should let people know, we don't really care about our stuff, so do whatever you want to it.
Yeah, just
You know,
beat
so
the
there's
daylights
that
out of
fine
it, 'cause it's
line
not
there.
his, he doesn't worry about it.
It's not like it's your kids that have damaged your things. It's
Yeah, by
your
the way,
employees.
how many dads have had a similar, experience with your own kids? Huh? Or a husband, okay. For those of you that did not raise your hand, give it time, you will. Definitely will. All right. So, if we wanna ask ourselves, am I living, do I have an attitude of simplicity in how I am viewing things? I think one of the things we have to ask is when something is lost or damaged, when somebody else, out of negligence or maliciousness, damages or takes something that I have that I value, what is my response? How do I react? Because that will be telling. So, second thing that we do, that I think to ask, questions to kind of evaluate this is, how often do I impulse buy? How often do I? Yeah. All right. Everybody fold your hands and put them in your lap. Everybody. It's fair. How often do you impulse buy? By the way, do you know why Target chose red for their interior color? Especially around the checkout area? They did tests and it agitates people in such a manner that they will go faster, and as they are going faster, they will buy more stuff. They didn't just pick that out because it's a nice red color. That was done on marketing research. So, but you think about impulse buying. Okay, so now one of the usual shopping trips we have to make, I have to do periodically, is I gotta go down to Fleet Farm because I need stuff, right? And I need to carry the brand of hydraulic oil that I really like, leaks a lot, and they have it at a good price. So, okay, so I've got this route in Fleet Farm, so we go in, and even if Shelley's with me, she goes off and does other stuff. I turn to the right, I go down to the oils, I look for the buckets of leaks a lot hydraulic oil, I buy engine oil, I buy the stuff I need, and then I go down the long aisle and I go through the ag area, cause I gotta look at the farm stuff, cause I need, you know, whether I need master links for chains or hydraulic fittings or hydraulic parts or whatever I'm doing, I do there. And then I swing around and I head down towards the tools and hardware. So I got this route, I've got my route. Shelley knows where to find me at any given moment. It's been 8.5 minutes, he's gonna be over there, okay. So I gotta walk past what do I have to walk past, by the way, if I'm moving? The what?
Guns.
The guns.
Chickens.
Well, not the gun, I rarely go back and walk against the wall where the guns actually are. But I do have to walk by the area where there's ammunition and there's targets. And then there's more cool stuff there to buy. And then I have to kind of watch this, because I'm like, well, that would all be nice, don't put it in the cart. And then I have to walk past the dog food, so I'm, okay. What's the cheapest dog food, most pounds for the fewest dollars for the dog? And then I get down into the tool area, so now I'm down in the tool area, right? How many guys can just casually walk through the tool aisle at Home Depot, or you can just doesn't? Yeah.
I like the tool area.
I'm not
Yeah.
a handyman.
I just walk down, man, I could do one of those, I could do one of that, you know, and then I gotta go to the hardware area.
It's housework in the kitchen.
Yeah, the housewares and kitchen don't bother me so bad, you know.
They bother me a lot. I love
But there's a certain point in there, in the trip, where I'm like, okay, don't put it in the cart just because you think you can, you know. Yes, I could use one of everything in the store. I could, well, most things, you know, or if not one of everything, you know, a half a dozen of everything. And so then, you know, but by the time that I get up, I swing around, I get over the checkout, then I gotta look at my cart and say, okay, how much of this do I need and how much of it do I want? Right? Anybody ever go to Costco? Sam's Club?
Yeah.
Right? You ever seen that habit? You got your list. Shelley shops like a combat soldier, man. She's got a list, and if it's not in the list, it doesn't go in the cart.
He keeps slipping stuff in, I tell you.
But that's the competition. That's the competition. Can I get something in the cart without her noticing? And then can I actually get it all the way through the checkout? Because now she's not only watching the cart the whole time, because I pushed the cart, she's watching the whole time, then she unloads it. So she can look at everything. So man, you gotta be really cagey now to get something through Costco without her looking at it. But I've refined my art. Yeah. Okay, but how often do you impulse buy? Just, you get to the place where you start out with these good intentions, I'm only getting this, but then pretty soon, hey, this is cool, I didn't think of the impulse. What are you gonna say, Fred?
I apologize, but back to the lost or damaged thing.
Yeah,
To show extreme frustration and a little bit of anger and all those sorts of things, and to experience that internally, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, right? I mean, that's a natural response. We're not called to just like, oh, no big deal, that's my truck, no big deal, you're forgiven, all that kind of stuff. I mean, we are to express the stupidity to that person about what they've done, but we're to do it in a respectful, godly manner, correct?
yeah, well, you know, this guy's young, he's got 40 or 50 years ahead of him in the work life.
Yeah,
There's things he's gotta learn.
yeah.
One of the things he's gotta learn is, if you're gonna work for somebody, you know, you are responsible for your employer's stuff,
Right,
you know.
right.
I had that one time with you know, hired guys to build pallets. I've had a lot of people build pallets, but it was rainy and muddy. And we got air hoses strung out, we got joints. And I walk out and this guy's standing there and he's got his foot, he's rubbing the air fitting into the mud. And I'm like, what are you doing? Well, he was just kind of mindlessly doing it. I said, if that was your air hose, would you do that? He's like, no. I'm like, then why are you doing it to mine? You know, use your head here. And that, you know, teaching is part of it. And I think feeling the way, understanding, what are you doing wrong?
But then the
Yeah.
internal part where you, and I've been in similar situations, feel anger and feel like, you know, part of you wants to smack the person around a little bit, but know that you can't do that, you know what I mean? But nevertheless.
Human
you're feeling
resources
that.
will call you in if you try that, you know.
No, but you're feeling that.
Oh, yeah.
But that's not, there's nothing necessarily inappropriate about that, right?
Oh,
As long
about
as you
feeling
don't-
the,
About
it's,
feeling that.
in, there is a way in which feeling the anger, or, you know,
Yeah.
and anger at this, at the casual disregard
Yeah, yeah,
for something.
Right.
Yeah, anger is the right response.
right,
You know, now it can't get expressed, like you say, you know,
right.
backhand them or,
Yeah.
you know, and does this rise to the level of saying, get your stuff and get off my, no, you don't get fired for this, you know.
Yeah.
Somebody's gotta teach them about this. So, but there needs, you need to feel the weight of it before you'll appreciate the solution of it. So, you know, and then of course I do have to fall back on, hey, one time I was 20 and did stuff and people had, you know, legitimately put up with me. So extend a little grace there, cause I got some, but at the same time, let's not do it again. But let's go to the impulse buying. You know, how often do I impulse buy? Ever just sit on Amazon and cruise through looking at stuff? You know, hey, I could use one of those. Hey, we could, that's a good price on that. And of course, we live in an economy in a world in which they want you to do this. From the grocery store, the hardware store, the big box, on Amazon, on whatever, you know, they want you to do this. And it's a fair question. How often do I just buy stuff on impulse? And maybe there's nothing wrong with what you're buying. You know, maybe there's a good reason, but do you ever stop and say, really, do I really need this? Can I get by with it? And I'm just laying these out as to, you know, we're gonna answer the question about simplicity. Do I live a lifestyle of simplicity? You know, here's some questions that we can ask ourselves about it. 3, do I carry consumer debt? Now, we get into debt. I realize we can have a big discussion here. And when I talk about consumer debt, I'm talking about buying consumables on credit cards, something like that. We're not gonna go into, is it okay for Christian to take out a mortgage? It's not that, but this is just consumer debt. I don't have the cash, but I want it so I can put it on a card. And do I carry consumer debt? You know, consumer debt's kind of a, when did this come into existence? Well, massive amounts. I mean, what did I read? The only debt in the United States that exceeds credit card debt is student loan debt. And I'm like, whoa, that's a lot. And you're talking trillions of dollars. And it's really easy to get into. But ask yourself the question. And we've helped people and struggled with this in various ways ourselves. And I've seen this. So somebody's got consumer debt, they got a lot of credit card debt. And you say, okay, I'm gonna pay that off for you, we'll make an arrangement, I'll pay it off. So that you're not paying these astronomical, you pay it off. You know, 6 months, 9 months, a year later, what condition are they in? They're back at it the same, if not worse. So the consumer debt this is generated by behavior, which is generated by attitude. There's something driving this. And so you have to ask the question, what in your life is driving this? Why can't you just say, no, I gotta get by without this? Where is that? So the amount of consumer debt a person have would be an indication of, are they living a life of simplicity? One is, do I view my stuff as a means to love others? Okay, all the stuff that I have, my house, my pickup truck, all the stuff. And of course, my most prized possession, the most valuable thing, my sawmill.
I thought you should say Shelley. That's what I thought too.
You thought I was gonna say Shelley? I don't consider Shelley to be stuff. Okay, she's not stuff. I'm talking about stuff. All right. But do I see these as a means by which I can love others? That's a fair question. There's nothing wrong with owning a nice house. I'm not condemning anybody that owns a nice house. We have, in my estimation, a nice house. Certainly adequate, keeps the rain out, takes the wind off. What more do we need, and it stays warm. So, that's a nice house to me, because I lived, like some of you, in a house that didn't keep the rain off and didn't keep the wind out, and that really wasn't very nice. So, so I have a nice truck. So I have a decent house. So I got a nice place. I've got tools. Do I see all this and go, look what I've accumulated? Or do I look at this and say, not that I want more. Do I look at it and say, how do I use this stuff to build the kingdom and do it to the benefit of other people? Do I see these as a means by which we can impact others' life, or is this just my stuff and I'm gonna protect it and guard it? That's a fair question, all the stuff we have. Now, I gotta say, and I will say this about this church, this is an incredibly generous church. It is an incredibly generous church, and a very giving church. And that, I think, is an indication of some fundamental spiritual health. But, the stuff that I have, do I see it as a means to love others? Francis Schaeffer, Francis and Edith Schaeffer, if you're not familiar with that name, you ought to be. All right, the married couple. So this is in the early 50s, late 50s, early 60s. And he's living in Switzerland. They're ministering with, I think, Child Evangelism Fellowship.
No, they have Labrie.
Labrie.
This is before Labrie. This is before Labrie. Don't jump ahead. All right. So they see all of these disaffected teenagers and young adults bumming around Europe. A lot of them having come out of the church, a lot of them having been growing up in Christian homes that had just thrown it away, and they are just bumming around Europe on an adventure, but ultimately looking for something of significance in their lives. And so he starts welcoming this. And you want to see a ministry that just kind of spontaneously developed with no plan, it was Labrie. Because what they did is they just started taking these young people in. And then they would have discussions in the living room or around the kitchen table on, whatever they wanted to ask. And he would discuss the Bible with them. And word started to spread. And people started to show up there and they would just show up. And they would take them in. And so I forget if this was a guy I met that told me this or I read this, either one, doesn't matter. This guy, that becomes Labrie, which means shelter. So this was a shelter. And Schaeffer's whole thing was, I'm going to give honest answers to honest questions about God and the Bible and about life. Honest answers to honest questions. And they dealt with people from just every, background you can imagine. So there was a guy said he'd been there and people would come and go and he was going to go up there. And he got there one Friday night kind of late. And the whole living room floor is just laid out with people, guys and gals in sleeping bags and wrapped in blankets. And, the kitchen tables, somebody sleeping on that. It's just every place. And he goes, well, I'll go sleep in the bathtub. And that'll be, So he goes in the bathroom and somebody was already sleeping in the bathtub. So they just brought all these people in. And they ministered to them. And this had a phenomenal impact. This incredible impact. But when you read Edith's book about that, and then she would, you gotta feed all these people. So they gotta figure out how to, shop, how to get, because they don't have any significant money. And they're doing all this, and they go, well, if you could stay for, I forget, a day or two, And then at that point, you got given work to do there. You know, gardening, they started gardens and they did all this stuff, so she's teaching people how to garden, she's teaching people how to go to the market and shop, and they're just, how can we stretch every nickel out? How can we get this out? She said in less than 2 years, every wedding present that they had been given, sheets, towels, cookware, you know, everything, you think when you got married, all the stuff you got. She said, in 2 years, everything we'd been given at our wedding was lost, stolen, or broken, or worn out. And feeding people. Now there's somebody that was like, hey, our stuff is a means by which we can love others. That was an example, and you look at the thousands and thousands of people that they impacted because they did that. But it's okay. The house we're in, you know, feed these kids. And what if that was how tough would that be to replicate? Now, of course, it got to have more of a scholastic. People tried to duplicate it, but they weren't Francis Schaeffer, so they couldn't, you know, there wasn't the scholars. But do I see my stuff as a means by which I will love others? Another great example of this is in our study of prayer, and of course I've harangued people that, and I will continue to, that retire. Get to that age where they got the money, they've got it figured out, they get the golden handshake, and I go, what are you gonna do for the next 30 years of your life? Well, they're gonna go play. Well, that's what they do. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not biblical. So there's a prayer ministry in Colorado Springs. And they've got a prayer center there. And reading and doing some research on this, there are people that have retired, moved to Colorado Springs in order that they can spend all day in prayer at the prayer center with others. And they said in that building, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, there are groups of people praying. And that's what they're doing. You know, they go, I can't do anything else, but I can do this. And that's what they are spending their retirement years doing. Is their stuff a means to love others, a means by which to love others. The story too of the guy that started Eagles Wings, you know. He retired, he was on the verge of retirement. He had his pile, he made his money, it's all set, goes to Uganda, sees this need, you know, what does he do? Every dime winds up going into this. Sacrifices what he has in order to help these people. So the question is, do I see my stuff as a means to love others, as a way to do? How many of these? We got a few minutes. I think I can do this. Another question. Well, this is kind of like, yeah, I'll do that. I'll skip that.
What is it, just so we know? How about that?
Well, it's a little different what I meant, but what would be my response if I lost most of what I own? If fire stuff, if I just lost it, okay? The fire got out of control and it would have been burned, the wind would have been out of the south instead of out of the west. And the fire a month ago would have swept up the hill and consumed Silver Creek Township. You know, how would I have dealt with that? When you go in and you go, the only thing left standing in your house, of what was your house, is your chimney. Okay, well, what would my response in that moment be? How would I handle that? What would I do?
You look at the whole story on how you got that stuff.
And I go, I'm too tired and old to do it all over again.
And then you'd look at that's what I'd do, at least. If I lost all that stuff, it would be like, all right, so how did I get that stuff in the first place? And then it would be like taking that whole stretch of lessons and trying to compile it into like the short pamphlet version to get back to where I was or where I wanted to be.
Yeah. Of course, my question would be, where can I buy a 40-foot shipping container? Gotta replace the house.
Yeah.
Although Shelley pointed out that we can't have a 40-foot shipping container as a house, just won't work. And she explained why that won't work, because you talk about extravagance and I talk about wealth. So years ago, I went on a bear hunt in Alaska with Ben, long story, and it was filmed, the thing's been on the Discovery Channel. So the president of the film crew was there, nice guy, really great guy. We got more funny stories that came out of that bear hunt, but this guy is showing me his pictures on his tablet of his hunting cabin, his hunting lodge in, I'm pretty sure it was Montana. Okay, so he's showing me, how many of you have ever been to Cabela's? Right? See the stuffed animal display, you walk in and you're like, I thought that's what this guy was showing me pictures of. This is his cabin, okay? He's hunted every continent. He's got mounts from just everywhere in his cabin. And I mean, I have no idea what the full body elephant mount cost, but okay. And all of that in his cabin. But this is the part that I love. So he's got hunting dogs, because he brings clients out and stuff to hunt there, and they bird hunt and all this stuff. So they got hunting dogs. So he's got a dog wash in the house. I'm like, dog wash? So he says, yep, we bring the dogs up. There's a door we open and they go in, and they're trained, they know how to do this. They stand there, and there's multiple shower heads, and they shut the door, and warm water washes the dog, okay? And then you go inside and you open the door, and the dog jumps up on a table, and it's got a whole grooming thing there, and you groom the dog, because you don't want to bring a dirty dog in the house. And then the dog jumps down, and there's another chamber with wind blowing on him to dry it off, and then there's a door that opens and they go into their kennel area. And Shelley pointed out to me, we won't have room for the dog wash for timber if we have a 40-foot shipping container. Now, I don't know if that qualifies as an extravagant lifestyle, but I was like, well, okay. And I'm not, on the other hand, it made all the sense that the guy would have a place like that. First off, he not only was not a believer, made no pretense of being a believer, didn't care about that stuff. He was honest. He'd made a pile of money. This is how he wanted to spend it. So that's what he did. I mean, it's kind of extravagant to me, but okay. The next one. Oh, can I give in a free and unrestrained manner? When I see a need, bad handwriting, unrestrained manner. When I do encounter needs, when I do see others that have a legitimate need, do I have the ability, the wherewithal, and the willingness to give and support in a free and unrestrained manner? Can I give without strings attached when I see a legitimate need? And again, our church does this really, really well. I will say that. I've experienced it, I've seen it, I've watched it. This is a good question. Can I give in a free and unrestrained manner? And I've seen a lot of people give, but it's not free and unrestrained. It's like, keep the strings attached. I'm going to control how that money gets spent. I'll give you this, but I'm going to tell you, but in a totally free and unrestrained manner. Can I give that way? In other words, I've eliminated these other things, so I'm not spending in excess of my income, so that I've got the ability, I've got the wherewithal to be able to give it in a free and unrestrained manner. And then another one is, am I grateful? Am I grateful for what I have? One of the problems with discontent is I look at what I don't have but want, and that makes me frustrated and discontent. So when I begin to experience a level of discontent about material things, that's a sign I need to stop and ask, why am I discontent? Why do I think I need this thing? But if you look at what you don't have, you will be discontent and frustrated. If you look at what you do have, and what you in fact do have, what God has blessed you with. The question is, am I grateful for it? Am I grateful for what I have? Maybe compared to others, I don't have as much. Maybe my house isn't as nice. Maybe my truck's not as nice as I think it is. Or whatever, you go on. But am I grateful for what I have? This is a crucial thing. Am I grateful? Do I generate a mindset of gratitude for God to God for all the ways that he's blessed me? So, Erin is not here for, I gotta say, I must have scared her off because she hasn't been here for me to ask the review question. But Mrs. Anderson, you raised your hand.
I don't know if this could be added, but I find, at least me, very wasteful. I mean, are we wasteful? You know, I hover over the dumpster when my husband's throwing, oh, we could use that for that. Oh, save that. Oh, don't throw that. We could use, and I would like to be rid of it, but I feel wasteful. My mother-in-law, when I bought a dollhouse for my daughter, she says, oh, when I was a kid, Dad would bring home wallpaper books and we'd make our dolls and we saved the buttons and the zippers off of old clothes. I feel so wasteful. Not that I want to hang on to all that junk. Yeah.
Exactly.
So how wasteful are we, too?
Yeah, I know.
So it's like, I don't want to get rid of stuff because I could use it. I could make an apron out of that old blouse. It ain't going to be me. But how wasteful are we?
Well, that's a fair
With our
question.
stuff that's adequate.
Yeah, how much is enough? How much is enough? Yeah, but that's a fair question, and we are wasteful. But our system will collapse if people aren't wasteful. That's the irony of it.
But that's what made us rich, right? Capitalism.
Well.
Now the bell's gonna ring, you're done.
Yeah, all right. All right. 1 Thessalonians 5:16 to 18. You know, if Erin was here, I could ask her the review question. All right, I'll be quick. Paul tells the church of Thessalonica, and this is review, we have been over this. Rejoice always, pray without ceasing, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God for you. If you want to know what does it mean to live by the will of God, how do I know whether I'm living a life of simplicity? Well, there's some tests that you can give yourself. You can just ask yourself about this. But this is the command that Paul gives them. Rejoice always. Rejoice always. Smash truck, there's something in there I should rejoice about. Nothing else, the opportunity to not lose my temper. Pray without ceasing. Pray continually. Enter the eternal conversation. Give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God for you. That will tell you whether you are approaching life with an attitude of simplicity. All right, let's close in prayer. Father, thank you for all the ways you bless us. Thank you for just the abundance that you pour out on us. And may we be wise stewards. May we realize ultimately we own nothing, but everything comes from your hand. May you use it wisely for the advancement of your kingdom, to be examples of your love and mercy to those around us. We thank you for the worship service that's ahead, and just ask it would work to your honor and glory. We pray in Jesus' name, amen.